Hi, I'm Frank. It's the Frank Roche Show. And let's start with a little contest today. A little contest. Send your answers to FXR3464 at yahoo.com. First one in, I don't know. I'll create some prize for something. It just occurred to me to do this just as I was about to start, so I haven't really sorted out a prize. How about a guest appearance on the Frank Roche Show via Zoom? Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. What's the band? What's the song? All right, let's chat. I got something on my mind today, a little bone to pick today. This one could cause some trouble. This could stir up passions. You ready? Third-party food delivery apps. I think if I were a mayor of a town, I would seriously consider outlawing third-party food delivery apps. I'm not a fan of the food app driver. Now, I fully appreciate there are some Americans, the elderly, disabled, sick, who benefit from delivery services, and I have myself hundreds of times. Free market capitalism can be messy and unfair. As a version of the old joke could go, free market capitalism is the worst system, pause, except for all our systems. And that's true. Free market capitalist systems often have market failures, where the altruist forces of supply and demand don't bring about the rational outcomes that one might expect. It's called the real world, of course. These market failures, or externalities as they're called in the economics literature, can be both positive and negative. A positive externality results in too little production of a good or service, and a negative externality results in too much production of a good or service. Vaccines, a great example of positive externality. Don't think COVID, please. Don't go there. That's a disaster. One person gets a vaccine that keeps them from getting something and therefore keeps them from passing on to others. Therefore, others don't feel the need to get the vaccine themselves. They're already protected. If you got it, I don't need to get it. So demand is not as high as might be, and so production is less. The positive externality results in underproduction. Pollution is a great example of a negative externality. A factory produces pollution and impacts the surrounding area, right? The one factory town. The cost of dealing with that pollution is left to the surrounding community as not a cost to the factory. Since their costs of production are less than they would be if the factory was responsible for solving the problem they've created, production is higher than it would otherwise be. Right? Their costs aren't as high as they would otherwise be, so they can produce more. So with that in mind, let's talk about the delivery apps that plague our life. I'm a fan of delivery from the business itself. I've not yet used, and I hope to continue to never use, third-party delivery services when it comes to my food and groceries. Now, thankfully, I'm healthy. I can walk, I can function, I can roam around my community on my own, I can drive. I do get my groceries delivered. I get my pizza delivered from restaurant workers. I get my Chinese food delivered from the restaurant workers. When it comes to food delivery, we have a negative externality developing. Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, etc. are overproducing. They aren't covering all their costs. And if they did, their business would shrink sharply, would see less drivers on the road, less congestion in small downtowns, less illegal parking. So what is the negative externality I'm talking about? Well, I'm talking about illegal parking. That causes traffic congestion. I'm talking about speeding from place to place, impacting road safety. And I'm talking about slower service at restaurants for people that actually come to the restaurant to either pick up their food or eat their food at the restaurant. People that actually show up to restaurants these days are become second-class citizens. And you can observe this. Go into a restaurant and observe what happens when a food delivery driver enters the restaurant. They rush to the cashier or the manager or the desk. They draw the attention right away from all the other customers. Those managers or workers interrupt what they were doing to get the food that's supposed to be delivered. Really is not good. As local downtown brick and mortar retail has been crushed by online shopping, it has been replaced by restaurants. The restaurant business has been booming for 10 or 15 years now for a variety of reasons. But when it comes to downtown business, What used to be more non-restaurant retail is now mostly all restaurant retail. And the restaurant businesses today represent essentially a regional monopoly for a given downtown area. Second, third, fourth tier cities, these mayors have become dependent on restaurants for bringing people into their downtown areas, for generating revenues throughout the city. And the restaurants and the restaurant organizations know this. If food delivery app drivers who park illegally are forced to park legally, usually for a fee, their tight profit margins would be further reduced and the number of drivers would fall. The congestion caused by illegal parking, parking in travel lanes, double parking, standing, causes other cars to stop and start, impacting the pollution impacts from brake dust, CO2 emissions, more wear and tear, more stress, road rage. These drivers rushing around our local neighborhoods causing safety problems for other drivers and pedestrians, kids that might be out playing. It has to be addressed at the local level, I would say. And the solution is easy. Enforce parking regulations. Enforce no standing regulations. Anecdotally, it seems like local police forces are acquiescing to the mayor or restaurant owners not to clamp down on illegal parking so that restaurants can sell more. Online delivery has boomed in the past 10 years, with even more growth the past few years coming through COVID. And I have to ask, those of you, my listeners, viewers, anyone else, those able to get their own food or use a restaurant's own delivery service, why would you be willing to pay the exorbitant fees that come with using the online delivery service? Talk about inflation. Fees on food delivery can reach 70% of the order's costs. And then there's a tip on top of that. And the food isn't as good because it was ready to eat long before it got to you. Is this pure laziness? Come on, get up off the couch. Go get your own food. Now, let me be clear. I'm a fan of the restaurant business. I have thought about opening a restaurant many times myself. I've worked in restaurants, put myself through college, love the business. I just want to support my local restaurant, and I want to keep my community efficient and safe. And in fact, when we use third-party apps, these restaurants pay fees as well. I like to order directly from my restaurant over the phone, get delivery from my restaurant workers. Anyway, so I'm a big fan of restaurants, love the business, and love the growth we've seen. All right, enough of that. That's my little bone to pick today. All righty, let's go ahead and check in on some economic data. I introduced this to you in one of my earlier videos this week, checking on the CPI, a bunch of data today, but the main information today is about the consumer price index. CPI rose 0.2% in June, a little better than expected, looking for 0.3%. Increased 0.1% in May. Over the past 12 months, index is up 3%. Very nice, good news for sure. Rates of inflation are falling, right? So the CPI is rising, so we have increasing at a decreasing rate. Good news to be sure, and this is the work of the Fed, of course, raising interest rates to slow down the economy. The index for shelter was the largest contributor to the monthly increase, accounting for over 70% of the increase. The index for motor vehicle insurance also contributing, both those things moving higher in price. Food index increased 0.1% in June after up 0.2% in May. Index for food at home unchanged over the month. Index for food away was up 0.4% in June. The energy index up 0.6% in June. When we look at less food and energy, right, the core CPI minus food and energy costs, because those are very volatile series. The index less food and energy was up 0.2%, smallest 1 month gain since last August. Less food and energy, though, index still up 4.8%. So that's still not good. We're still well off the Fed's target of 2% on an annualized basis. So some good news for sure. CPI lower than expected, moving in the right direction. The Fed's actions with respect to interest rates paying off on the inflation front. And of course, that means we're slowing down economically, moving towards recession. And there's just no avoiding that. That's the trade-off. All right, checking in real quickly. We also had this morning MBA mortgage applications up 0.9%, way better than expected. 30-year mortgage rate, 7.07%. Ouch. Also today, we have FOMC member Neil Kashkari speaking. He's the president of Minneapolis Federal Reserve. What else do we have today? This afternoon, we have Ralph Bostic from the Atlanta Fed speaking, and we have Loretta Mester from the Cleveland Fed speaking as well this afternoon, so pay attention for that. All right, a little rundown on the markets there for you. Let's see if we can find out what's going on Equity markets are liking this. This is speculation. The Fed will pause, stop, or begin to stop after this month's increase. Remember, the meeting of the 25th and 26th. So equity markets are higher. That bubble keeps blowing higher and higher. Don't put new money to work up here. 10-year Treasury down, right? Below 4% now, 3.92%. Oil up 75.54 for WTI. Dollar index down. Okay, so the markets are interpreting this CPI data as taking off the pressure on interest rates. The Fed's going to hike 25 in July, and then maybe they're done. That's what the market's telling us. All right, one more thing for us today. I want to talk about some digital wellness and digital well-being just briefly. Smartphones and education don't seem to match. And the evidence of a digital addiction on the part of the young is witnessed every day by educators. In the high school setting, the level of dependence on smartphones for their connection to others not near them is evident in the classroom, in the hallways, in the lunchroom, and on the athletic fields. Most schools and most educators understandably have no phone policy in the classroom. Such a policy is only truly effective if the students' cell phones are in their book bag or collected by the teacher at the start of each class. If the students are allowed to have their phones in their pocket or in or on their desk, they will be unable to keep themselves from checking their screens for texts or social media alerts during class. And these distractions hurt learning. They disrupt the class. There's no denying that. The overwhelming majority of students can manage a 60-minute separation from their device. However, the digital addiction is evident the moment the class is over, as teachers will observe students check their cell phones within seconds of getting up from their desk, chasing after that high of the new text, the response to a social media post, to resume a game, to get a message from a parent, to check news. Even though throughout the day, the students are surrounded by peers and friends and teachers and administrators who they can interact with and talk with and play with, and they do, usually the smartphone wins their attention. Educators must find a way to separate students from their devices as much as possible in a school day. Increasingly, some schools are collecting students' cell phones in the morning and returning them at the end of the day and during extended breaks. Most educators enforce a no cell phone policy in class. Any amount of time an educator can keep a student off their device is beneficial to the student, whether they realize it or not, for a variety of reasons. And I use the carpal tunnel syndrome, or the eyes, or the neck. It's better for learning, better for their physical health, and better for their developing social skills. The solution to this addiction has to involve three parties: the student, the parent, and the school or teacher. I talk of students' addiction, but of course that also applies to adults, parents, teachers, administrators, coaches. Modeling the best behavior on the part of parents, teachers, and administrators can go a long way to helping students put their devices down, to engage in more direct human-to-human interactions. There are a lot of emotions involved here, and a tough love approach, the cold turkey approach, may not work for most, although that is my tendency to go the tough love approach. Just, tomorrow, no more cell phones, period. That would freak a lot of people out, of course, and be a significant adjustment process. Digital wellness, digital well-being is a big topic today. How we got here can be a long discussion. The negative consequences can be a long discussion. The solutions, that is not a long discussion. Step away from the device. As my partner would say, and dear friend would say, be bored. Go out and engage with the world. I did see some interesting news today. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, I got it. Cell phones, tablets, and smartwatches will be largely banned from classrooms in the Netherlands from January 1st, 2024, in a bid to limit distractions during lessons. Devices will only be allowed if they are specifically needed, for instance, during lessons on digital skills, for medical reasons, or for people with disabilities. All right, that's a good step forward. That's kind of what we've been talking about. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. I'm Frankie. Always try to buy American.